G'day and welcome back to another DB Legends video. In this video we're going to take a look at just how good the purple cell orange or power awakening Piccolo, which I think I said cell orange, Piccolo orange, thank you. I think power awakening Piccolo is actually a much better name by the way for like this unit in general. Like I genuinely just think like Orange Piccolo, kind of a little bit of a bummer, but hey, whatever. I think, overall pretty decent stuff. I do really quite like, the overall abilities of Piccolo. I think he's pretty good overall. Like main ability, lets him draw the special beam cannon next, restores his own health by 30%, ki by 40, restores his own vanishing gauge, always super helpful. Also a reduction to the enemy's sustained damage CUT effects, which is pretty good. His unique abilities are really nice as well, plus 80% to damage inflicted, 60% damage reduction, which is also decent, minus 10 to blast arts card costs. And then if there's hybrid Saiyans, regen, or super warrior battle members, which is a nice covering, he gets 50% to damage inflicted, and then inflicts the -1 arts card draw speed and plus 10 to all arts cards costs to the enemy, which is pretty good. And when you switch him to standby, you restore ally health, which is good, and you give 20% to damage inflicted by allies. You also reduce the enemy ki, which is pretty good. Then, of course, you will also restore allied character Gohan or character Pan's health by 20% when this unit is defeated, which is again pretty good. And finally, Hidden Power Unleashed. He will randomly destroy 2 enemy cards when changing cover. This is great for ruining tempo. He will also knock them back to long range. And then when he enters the battlefield, he will draw a special arts card next. Restore his own ki by 20 and then have plus 100% to the next blast arts damage inflicted. Also increasing his own draw card speed and just doing a whole bunch of goodies. And then when he hits the enemy with a strike or blast card, he gets plus 10% to damage received to them and minus 20% to health restoration, which is pretty nice. And then when the enemy's attack is over, he inflicts all enemies with no switching, which is pretty good. So yeah, pretty nice stuff for Piccolo. His abilities, the special move, Demon Stone Rend, gives plus 20% to special move damage, shortens his allies' substitution counters, and it's just generally a pretty decent special move. It doesn't do huge damage, but it's more a setup for the special beam cannon realistically. In his special card or his special skill is indeed plus 25% to damage inflicted and then cancels own attribute downgrades, etc. All stock standard stuff, but pretty decent stuff. And yeah, then he's got Special Beam Cannon, which gives plus 50% to ultimate damage, obviously huge, and more importantly nullifies enemy revive effects, which is really, really, really good. So in total he's got some pretty nice stuff, also destroys all their cards and gives a 100% chance to inflict bleed. So Piccolo's got a really nice strong finisher, especially if you can couple it with some setup. The main thing with him, I think he's not necessarily as tanky, I think, as some people wanted him to be. Not that he's by any means not a tanky unit, but I just think some people would have liked him to be a tiny bit tankier, if anything. Me personally, I'm really, really happy with him. I think he's a great unit. He's obviously really designed well to pair with Gohan and Pan. I think that's very apparent. And if you think that's not the case, then you do need some help. It's nice that he does a little bit of everything. So switching him out gives some health, gives some coverage. Switching him in gives some debuffs. It's just some really nice covering from all of his abilities. You're not kind of forced to use him a certain way. And obviously he pairs great with Pan. Pan debuffs the enemy huge whenever she switches in. So switching Pan in, switching Piccolo in just constantly debuffs the enemy. It's a really irritating mechanic to use. It's great. I think it's really awesome. So both of them really nice, good in the team together. But Piccolo, he's not that limited. He does obviously give Pan and Gohan 20% extra damage, sorry, 20% extra health when he's defeated. But that's really it. The rest is actually pretty awesome. He gets all of it from a regen. He gets all of it from Super Warrior. He gives all of it from a Hybrid Saiyan. So he's pretty malleable in terms of like teams you can run him on. At least I think. And he does cover Saga from the movies and regen, which is again pretty good categories. Honestly speaking, it's pretty nice. Yeah. So for me, really happy with him. I do think equipment-wise, my equipment could definitely be better. I don't think my equipment that I'm utilizing is his best, if I can speak plainly. It's not that I'm using terrible equipment, it's just that quite honestly I don't think I'm using his best equipment. Piccolo is, first and foremost, as a unit, a range type unit. So you can manifest that and try and improve his tankiness and his range damage, which I think is pretty good overall. There's a couple nice abilities and nice pieces of equipment. So for example, now Kakarot, which is the Turles equipment, does increase his base strike attack and his base blast defense and his base blast attack, while also increasing health restoration, just being kind of a generic stat buffer. It's pretty decent. It's not like I would say that it's the absolute one you have to use, but it is pretty decent, it is quite solid. So yeah, I would say that's good, if not spectacular. And then in terms of his other abilities, there's a lot. There's the unique equip that's been dropping from all of the events, which is base blast attack, base strike attack, and base health. It's decent. The Piccolo, inverted commas one. But yeah, it's good if you've got a regen or a hybrid Saiyans unit on your team. Obviously, that's more aimed towards a movie heroes team. It is a good piece of gear, but I wouldn't say it's like his best gear. Again, just kind of solid. I think the thing with Piccolo is there's a lot of decent gear options, so don't feel like you have to distinctly go with anything. Obviously, him being a range type, you do want to work on his ranged. I think special move damage is really good for him because of the special beam cannon. So being able to kind of use the special beam cannon to really finish off enemies is really good, and so giving that some more damage is something I would like, especially with the amount of revive characters that there are. I think special damage is always appreciated, but there's tons of equipment you can use. A lot of people have better builds than mine. Personally speaking, I think Awaken Beat It is pretty decent with base strike defense, base blast defense, more base blast or base strike or health restoration, and then plus base blast attack is pretty good, 30% as well. And the Uwu equipment is also pretty decent, but again, it's giving base strike attack, which you really don't need, to be honest. So Awaken Beat It, I think, is pretty good. I would probably say now Kakarot is one of my more favorite equipments. And then you also get ones like Awakened Hia, which is a kind of a strike variant, not really something that I would personally utilize. And maybe the Awakened No, which is kind of the special beam cannon one, I think is pretty good. Base blast attack, base special move damage, all pretty nice stuff for Piccolo. Just if we're talking about Piccolo, pretty nice stuff. But there's tons of options. You can go with whatever you want. I think the revived hero equipment's also pretty good. But yeah, just gonna depend on what you really want to run. But you need to give him health. Health's obviously always a meta kind of equipment. And then you also want to kind of give him quite a few abilities. So health, definitely something that's quite meta. I would say alongside that, if you want to, maybe look at investing in giving him some special move damage, but mainly blast and defenses is always big. So defense, priority wise, blast, defense, health restoration, and yeah, you should be good from there. It's just going to depend on what you like. If anyone's got gear recommendations, always place them down below. I really do appreciate the gear recommendations. I hardly ever have any decent gear suggestions. Not a good guy when it comes to gear. I generally keep it quite simple, which isn't the right way to do it. the more specialized you go with your gear, the harder you invest on it, is going to be what separates you at the top. So I'm not going to suggest my strategy when it comes to gear, just because it really isn't the best strategy to utilize. So yeah, beyond that though, honestly guys, just go for whatever works for you, and yeah, you should be fine. As you can see, we're doing some pretty decent work with them, based on the gameplay here. I think, he's always the kind of unit that's going to either look fantastic or look really, really, really average. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think, he's not a unit that's going to ever really look terrible, at least for me. One thing I do like about him is the, special beam cannon. I think it is a great move. The fact that it destroys all the cards, the fact that it inflicts bleed, the fact that it prevents revival mechanics, it's really, really top, and it really does help out a lot. It's a difficult one to measure, because if you are someone that is used against, you hate it. Whereas, like, if you are someone who, how can I say, maybe necessarily, doesn't know what his abilities do, I think, personally speaking, it's really, really, not that big a deal. So, yeah, overall, I don't know, I like him. I think the correct way to use him is as a second rote unit. I don't think he's a tank. For me at least, I don't think he's a tank. I think he's definitely more of a second slot, switch him in and out kind of unit. Decent, but definitely don't see him being like this big old kind of unit that I think a lot of people can, really, really, really invest in as like a tank or anything like that. At least for me. But overall, I dig him. I do think he's cool. I think, if you are very into regeneration or Saga from the movies, I think Piccolo is going to be a really good option for you, because I think that's really the two teams where he works the best. Obviously, with the leader skill nowadays, you can run him as a leader, but I think his overall abilities in that aren't necessarily the greatest. Like his Z abilities to be a leader, his max Z ability is pretty good, but it's not anything crazy. It's plus 35% to base strike and base attack, and plus 3% to damage inflicted by blast darts. Obviously that's good, but to say it's really, really to say it's really, really good is, I think a bit excessive. Obviously, one like Pan, where you're getting health and crit strike and a lot of things, I think is better than Piccolo's, at least for me. Personally speaking, I do think Pan's Z abilities do help a lot more than Piccolo's. But to each their own. Some people are really, really, really gonna like Piccolo's abilities, but I don't think they're worthy of him being a leader. At least for me. I think he's not necessarily a leader, but I do think he's still a very good unit. I use him in two of my competitive teams, so I think he's great. And he does do a very, very, very significant amount of damage. The regen and the health increase also really helps. Having someone you can kind of throw out a lot, and have him switch back in and keep healing, is really, really good. For me, at least, I think he's really solid. So, to each their own though. Again, guys, just gonna depend realistically on what your teams are, what other units you have. Piccolo's not going to solo carry your team. He's not like a Beast Gohan, where the damage output is super duper high. But I do think he is very, very solid. And I think if you're looking for just a decent unit, a unit that's going to help you out, a unit that's going to bring like a varying array of abilities to your team, I think you can't go too wrong with picking Piccolo. There we go. How's that one? But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Piccolo. I think he's great, and I think most players should definitely be using him. So yeah, I do quite like him. I think regen, movie heroes, I think, is the strongest team. You do get a lot of the benefits and synergy, especially if you have Beast Gohan, and most players should have Pan, because of her being a login reward. So I think, yeah, I would say movie heroes definitely strongest team. Obviously, you know, players might have different teams based on their selections and things like that. But for me, I think, yeah, movie heroes is the strongest. Also decent on regen, but there's not like too much. Nice thing about regen is obviously all the healing which accompanies regen, and having a unit like Piccolo that again also heals but also brings healing to the rest of the team is always something that synergizes well with regen. Especially since Piccolo also can inflict bleed, does mean he has some decent synergy with units like Lord Slug, units like Demon King Piccolo, units like you know, Majin Buu, Kid Buu, you know, pretty nice stuff. But again, I wouldn't really use him as a leader. I'd probably just use him on those teams. If you are struggling to have a health-based unit on your team, or a unit that's going to regen your health, then you can definitely rock Piccolo. He's not going to be bad in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, you can definitely do that. He will help you out there. It's just, yeah, definitely, I would say, for me at least, Piccolo is a top unit. I wouldn't say he's top tier, but I think he's really good. And he's a sparking I think a lot of players should be rocking on their teams. At least for me, personally speaking, I think he's great. And I think players should be rocking him on their teams. And really, yeah, just getting the best out of him. I think, you know, from a like performance point of view, definitely can do better than what I've shown. But again, as I always state, I'm really not the best player. I'm not the best player overall. I'm not like a pro level player. I'm not like a top tier player. So I can't really comment hugely on like, you know, okay, this is like the best way to play him. I just try to use him as best I can, and I can tell you that I genuinely tend to win more than I lose while using Piccolo in my team, which for me means that he's pretty good. But yeah, to each their own. For you guys, maybe you have a different experience, but yeah, to me, I think he's really, really solid. One thing I will definitely suggest is for him is to better work on his gear. I do think you can do a lot better than what I've done, but he's got really, really good synergy. He can work well with, you know, the coolers that have come out. He can work well with Final Form Cooler. He can work well with Super Gogeta. He can work well with Ultra Rare Broly. He can work well with Ultra Rare Omega Shenron. He's actually got a lot of great synergy. So, yeah, all of those units aren't going to complain about working with Piccolo. That's the nice thing about Piccolo. His skill set, his link set, his abilities, everything that he brings to the team is not anything that you're going to complain about, because he provides so much different stuff. Yeah, you have really, really, really awesome stuff when you work with Piccolo. You've got so many great abilities to utilize. You've got so many different toolkits in his like wheelhouse that you can use, and I just think, yeah, in general, I think he's looking really, really solid. So that's pretty much it for me in terms of Piccolo. I think most people will probably find that, yeah, Piccolo's pretty good. If you've got gear suggestions, I do suggest leaving them down below, because yeah, quite frankly, I do think it is pretty important. And like I said, guys, feel free to offer any suggestions. I myself am not a pro player, so please give people your opinions on Piccolo as well. But that's definitely going to be it for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, let me know your thoughts as well. Love to hear them. But yeah, that's going to be it from me. Until then, Bye.